Hello, everyone. I'm Mark, and welcome to the AITHERIA Podcast. Today, we're diving into a fascinating topic: why the traditional 9 to 5 job is disappearing and how AI is transforming the future of work. Get ready for some fresh insights and bold ideas. This is going to be an exciting ride. Let's jump right in.
Today, we are staring directly into, well, the engine room of the future, aren't we? We're asking that single most critical question facing, I think, every creative professional, every artist, frankly, every curious person out there.
Definitely.
When it ends to real creation, is the future AI just taking over, or are we as humans about to become, exponentially more powerful?
Yeah, and this isn't some sci-fi hypothetical anymore, is it? It's
Right.
not just philosophy.
Well, not at all.
This is practical. It's urgent. It affects your workflow right now, your career strategy, how you even think about the value of your own creative work going forward.
Absolutely.
We've pulled together a pretty substantial stack of recent insights. Everything from technical papers on these generative models to analyses from inside the creative industries trying to map this new terrain.
And our mission today really is to cut through all the noise. The fear, the hype, all of it. We want to give you, our listener, a kind of shortcut, a way to understand the precise boundary between what AI is fundamentally capable of right now and what still needs that essential, that non-algorithmic human touch, that necessity.
And look, we can probably offer pretty clear synthesis right up front, can't we? The answer isn't competition. It's just not.
Right.
Our read of the sources consistently, it demonstrates this isn't a zero-sum game. What we're seeing is the rapid forging of a really profound collaboration
Collaboration, okay.
where the human provides that irreplaceable element, the vision, the meaning, and the AI. It gives you the acceleration, the amplification. We're aiming to give you the framework, really, for thriving in that new relationship over, say, the next 5 years.
Okay, let's unpack that then and maybe start by acknowledging where all this anxiety comes from, because the capabilities are impressive.
Oh, definitely.
If you haven't played with tools like Suno for music or Midjourney for images recently, the speed, the complexity of what they spit out, it's genuinely stunning. So what can AI do right now that's making people feel, well, maybe a little threatened? Hashtag tag 1, the impressive capabilities and fundamental limits of AI creation.
Well, the scale of the change is just astonishing. I mean, our sources confirm it. Modern AI isn't just generating simple little bits of content anymore.
Yeah.
It can now generate highly complex creative outputs across, well, pretty much every medium you can think of. We're talking music, incredibly realistic images, or highly stylized ones.
Detailed script.
Detailed scripts, long-form text, generated videos, even fully rendered virtual environments you could drop into a game or a film.
I think the easiest way maybe to grasp this new reality is just speed and volume, right?
Exactly.
Take music, for example. That's seen maybe the most dramatic acceleration. A few years back, AI might generate, a simple chord progression. Now, tools can produce original, fully structured songs. Melody, rhythm, instruments, genre, even lyrics. And they do it in minutes.
Minutes. And the sheer volume of viable ideas. That's AI's immediate superpower. Think about it. A creative director needs 20 variations of a melody for an ad,
Right.
or 40 different logo sketches, 10 short story outlines based on a specific theme. And AI delivers that huge volume of starting material faster than a human could even finish their first polished draft. It's basically solved the blank page problem.
That's a good way to put it. And we see that same leap in visuals too. Midjourney, DLLE, they're past that kind of awkward early phase, aren't they?
Oh yeah, way past it.
They generate artwork that can look exactly like a high-res photo. Or, and this is critical, they can create these hyper-stylized images that convincingly mimic the texture, the colors, the brushwork of a specific art style, or even a historical artist. The level of instruction you can give is immense.
And text, of course. Scripting. The large language models, they excel at the structural work. They can quickly draft short stories, format detailed scripts, generate marketing copy for specific demographics, outline really complex narrative structures with multiple steps. They handle the scaffolding, the structural integrity, often flawlessly.
Okay, so we've established the what. These impressive feats, acceleration, rapid prototyping, sophisticated generation across mediums. It handles that initial production phase, the volume, with ease. But now we have to pivot, don't we, to the fundamental limits, the structural limitations.
Right.
If AI is this good, why isn't it just taking over completely? Where's that necessary boundary? Where does the human need to be?
This is where we absolutely have to define the core difference. It's a synthesis versus true creation. The core limitation, and it's structural, it's algorithmic, is that AI only analyzes patterns in existing data and then recombines them. It is fundamentally, and this is key, fundamentally and probably permanently just a sophisticated pattern machine.
Okay, pattern machine. That sounds great for like optimization, replication, stuff like that. But why is that a hard boundary for creativity? I mean, isn't a lot of learning a craft, learning art about mastering patterns?
Mastering patterns is definitely essential, yeah. But true creation often requires intentional deviation from those patterns.
Yeah.
It requires subjective experience, cultural translation, things machines just don't have. A key limit is what some sources call the emotional and cultural blind spot.
Right.
The AI doesn't truly understand emotion or context or culture. It only understands the statistical representation of those things it found in its training data.
Okay, let's pause on that difference for a second because I think it's really vital for listeners to get this. What is the actual difference between an AI correlating, say, millions of data points linked to the word loneliness versus a human creator actually experiencing solitude?
That's a great question. So the AI, it can correlate a minor key, maybe specific shades of blue in an image, certain lyrical themes about isolation. It knows that combination has the highest statistical probability of being labeled lonely by humans in the past.
Based on its data.
Exactly. But the AI has no personal relationship with any of those data points. It has no subjective, embodied experience of what isolation or alienation actually feels like. So the output, while it might technically hit all the markers for sadness or loneliness, it often lacks that authentic vulnerability, that depth that can really only come from lived experience.
So it's mimicking the form of the emotion based on what humans have made before, but it can't access the source of it or the reason behind the meaning.
Precisely.
And that has huge implications for art that wants to be truly relevant or meaningful because context is everything, isn't it?
Context is absolutely crucial. Art doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's a commentary or a mirror or a conversation happening within a specific cultural moment. AI lacks that real-time cultural context. It doesn't get current politics or the subtle nuances of social dialogue.
The inside joke.
The inside jokes, exactly. It can mimic the style of a movement, sure, but it struggles to understand the unspoken rules, the specific social commentary that's often embedded in truly groundbreaking human art. It knows what worked before, but it can't intuit the present cultural nerve, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. And tied directly to this, I suppose, is the lack of personal experience and intent. The sources point out that because AI can't feel, it can't inject personal experience into art. Okay, that follows. But the second part is fascinating. It can't make mistakes for the sake of creativity.
Right, that intentional, unoptimized deviation. That subjective choice to just break the established pattern. That is the engine of artistic innovation. Well, think about it. If an AI is optimized to replicate statistically successful outcomes based on its training data, it's fundamentally risk-averse. It's designed not to fail, in a sense.
Okay.
It will never intentionally veer off course to explore something messy or contradictory or unproven, which is precisely where true novelty, real breakthroughs often emerge. That creative mistake requires a subjective, intuitive judgment. It's driven by knowledge that isn't just data points.
I wonder, though, what if an AI does generate something totally surprising, something that looks like a mistake, but the audience perceives it as genius? Does the machine still win then?
That's a really interesting edge case. But I'd argue that output is still just a byproduct of randomized parameters within its optimization model. It wasn't intentional genius. A human, seeing that accidental genius, is still required to step in and say, wait, stop. This unexpected, unoptimized piece, this is the one we should run with. And then, crucially, that human provides the meaning and the context for why the mistake is actually brilliant.
So the human assigns the meaning to the randomness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without that subjective editorial choice, that human interpretation, it remains just a statistical anomaly, not art.
That's a really powerful synthesis. So if creativity needs personal meaning, intention, cultural resonance, subjective feeling, then AI, just by its very definition, it can't be the sole source.
It can't.
It's a supremely sophisticated synthesizer, a remixer of existing human work, but it's not the originator in that deep sense. And that shifts our focus immediately away from just pure competition, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It points directly towards understanding the human's indispensable role. #2, the indispensable value of the human creator.
Okay, so if AI handles the speed, the volume, then the human creator has to be responsible for what? The depth, the direction.
Exactly. The depth, the direction, the why.
Yeah.
We need to really zero in on those non-algorithmic elements that only humans bring to the creative table.
It feels like the core difference is moving beyond just executing structures well and into subjective insight. The sources talk about humans bringing intuition, narrative depth. That capacity we have for just knowing what works emotionally, even if we can't perfectly articulate the formula for a machine.
That gut feeling, right? That sense of pacing, that narrative intuition, it comes from a lifetime of messy, subjective experience. From social interactions, cultural absorption. It's knowledge derived from living, not just from processing a million data sets.
Right.
And that intuition allows humans to make predictions about how an audience might react based on shared humanity, not just statistics.
And that links into cultural knowledge too, doesn't it? Understanding those unspoken rules, the nuances in the algorithm just misses.
Totally. A human creator, for instance, knows the subtle differences in regional dialect, or specific social taboos, or the political undertones simmering in a particular time and place, things that might not be explicitly tagged in a training data set, but are instantly recognizable and potent for an audience.
And maybe most critically, emotional depth and personal meaning. We embed our subjective experience into the art.
Yes. When a creator is wrestling with something, personal grief, joy, anxiety, that vulnerability, that raw experience gets encoded into the work, often unconsciously. And that vulnerability is the ultimate connection point for the audience. AI can't be vulnerable. It has nothing personal to be vulnerable about.
Which brings us back to intentionality and risk-taking. The sources really hammer this point. Humans make bold choices. They take risks. I still want to push on this a bit. Why is risk-taking so fundamentally human, and why can't a machine just be programmed to take a risk?
Well, what is a risk, creatively speaking? It's an investment in an uncertain outcome. It's based on a deeply held subjective belief, a vision that the potential payoff, the artistic breakthrough, the cultural shift you're aiming for outweighs the calculated probability of failure. An algorithm, by its nature, seeks the highest probability of success based on its known data. It will hedge, it will optimize towards the mean, but it will never make a bold, counterintuitive, potentially costly choice based on pure, unverified artistic vision. That requires a creator willing to put their reputation, their resources, their time on the line for something they believe in, even if the data says don't.
So the human is the one who says, look, every metric, all the past data says this specific key change will flop, or this controversial plot point will alienate people.
Right.
But my intuition, my understanding of this cultural moment tells me it has to be done. That's the engine of creative evolution.
Exactly. That's the necessary human input that pushes boundaries. And realizing this, it forms the foundation of what we're calling the triad of human necessity.
Okay.
If we look ahead, AI accelerates production, yes. But the human is the required element that preserves these three critical components.
Let's spend some real time on this triad. It sounds crucial. Let's start with the first component you mentioned, vision.
Okay, vision. This is the non-negotiable directive. It's setting the overarching goal, the purpose of the work, the final emotional destination you want the audience to reach. AI can give you pathways, drafts, countless options, but the human decides why this piece needs to exist in the first place. What message does it need to convey? What specific emotional territory should it explore and inhabit? The human acts as the ultimate director, the editor-in-chief of the whole enterprise. They provide the subjective definition of good or successful for this specific project.
Okay, that makes sense. The director role. The second component is emotion. We've touched on this. AI mimics, humans inject the real feeling. But how do we make sure that human emotion is actually preserved in a process that's getting more automated?
That's a practical challenge for sure. I think it comes down to focusing human time and effort strategically.
Yeah.
Focusing on the parts of the work that allow for the most vulnerability, the most personal inflection.
So not trying to do everything manually.
No, definitely not. It might mean, for example, the human only writes the key poetic line in a song generated by AI, or they only digitally sculpt the face, the expression of the central character in a scene otherwise generated. That moment of human touch, that specific injection of subjective experience, that's the difference between a technically perfect composition and one that genuinely moves you, maybe even to tears.
So emotional preservation requires intentional, focused human intervention where it matters most.
Exactly. It's about identifying the soul of the piece and making sure a human puts it there.
And finally, the third part of the triad, meaning in this coming era of infinite AI-generated content, why is meaning the crucial component for survival?
Because if the market gets saturated with infinite, technically perfect AI-generated stuff content that serves a function, maybe looks good but lacks deeper significance, then meaning becomes the ultimate scarce resource. It's what makes something stand out.
Scarcity drives value.
Precisely. Meaning ties the work to personal history, or cultural relevance, or philosophical depth, or a political statement. If you want your work to be memorable, if you want it to last beyond the next trend cycle, if you want it to command a premium, it has to be significant. Significant to the creator first, and then hopefully resonant within the culture.
And AI-generated work, because it lacks that internal creator, that lived experience, it ultimately defaults to hollowness over time.
That's the argument, yeah. It might be useful, even beautiful, but it lacks that inherent earned meaning.
Wow. Okay, that feels like the ultimate distinction then. We have to stop trying to compete head-on with AI's speed and volume.
It's a losing battle.
And instead see it as maybe the most powerful amplification tool ever invented for our own vision, emotion, and meaning.
Exactly. And that realization that humans must preserve the VEM triad: vision, emotion. Meaning that's what leads us directly into the practical framework for successful collaboration.
Okay, so the big paradigm shift is simple, really. Stop competing, start collaborating.
It sounds simple, but it's a profound mental shift for many creators. The most successful ones, going forward, won't view AI as a competitor to be feared or beaten. They'll view it as the ultimate production assistant. The future is a partnership.
A partnership where humans lead with that VEM triad.
Correct. Humans lead with vision, emotion, and meaning.
And AI executes the high-volume stuff, the rapid generation, the repetitive tasks.
Exactly. Humans maintain control over the why and the feel, while happily letting AI handle a lot of the heavy lifting.
Which theoretically frees up the human creator to focus almost all their limited valuable time on the high-value decisions, right? Not the tedious execution.
That's the promise. 90% of your time on vision, emotion, meaning, curation.
Right.
Rather than 90% on manual production grunt work. Let's look at some practical examples, some case studies across different fields to see how this actually reshapes the day-to-day workflow.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Let's start with music production. You mentioned this earlier. It seems to have shifted from needing deep technical skills in recording and arrangement towards more of a selection and refinement model.
Yeah, think about the old barriers to entry. You needed physical instruments or expensive software synths, recording expertise, complex digital audio workstation knowledge.
A steep learning curve.
A very steep curve. Now, a music producer could use an AI tool, give it a prompt like, generate an ambient techno track, 120 BPM, heavy reverb, inspired by early Aphex Twin, with a feeling of nostalgic melancholy. And the AI could spit out, say, 50 rough but fully structured tracks based on that prompt.
50 demos in. How long?
Maybe under an hour for the whole batch. Seriously.
Okay, so the human time investment shifts completely. You're not spending weeks laboring over arranging MIDI notes or tweaking synth patches.
Right. Your primary job initially becomes curation. You listen through those 50 AI options, using your subjective taste, your cultural knowledge, your ear for potential, to identify the one or two tracks that possess the best underlying vibe or the most promising emotional trajectory.
And then comes the refinement phase. This is where the human injects the soul.
Exactly. The AI provides the skeleton, maybe a pretty good one, but the producer then goes in and manually re-records the main melody, perhaps using a favorite vintage analog synth to get that specific warmth the AI missed. Or they'll add unique sound design effects, maybe some field recordings, things the AI hasn't been trained on. Or, crucially, they might bring in a specific human vocalist to inject personal inflection and emotion into the AI-suggested lyrics.
So the human adds the noise, the specific imperfections, the unique flavor that makes the track feel less generic, more lived in.
Precisely. The talent shifts, doesn't it? From being able to laboriously create all the sounds from scratch to being able to instantly discern quality, inject subjective style, and know exactly where to apply that irreplaceable human touch for maximal impact.
Okay, that makes sense for music. What about writing and narrative crafting? How does the collaboration work there? You said it moves from brainstorming into, what was it, human-centered nuance.
Yeah, human-centered nuance.
Yeah.
Think about how much time writers often spend just wrestling with structural elements, making sure the plot timeline is consistent, that the world-building rules don't contradict each other, that the three-act structure hits the right beats at the right pace.
The scaffolding again.
Exactly, the scaffolding. AI is fantastic at suggesting structures. It can offer variations on classic plot tropes. It can quickly outline complex lore for a fantasy novel. It knows story structure inside out from its training data.
So a writer could prompt an AI with something like, outline a mystery novel set in Victorian London about a missing clockmaker, focus on class tension, and maybe weave in these 5 specific historical figures.
Perfect example. The AI delivers the structure, maybe some historical facts as data points, perhaps even 10 different potential plot resolutions or twists. That's incredibly powerful for rapid ideation, breaking through writer's block.
But the writer's indispensable job, then, is crafting the nuanced, human-centered narrative within that structure.
That's the critical distinction. Nuance, human-centered perspectives, these require cultural understanding, emotional intelligence, lived experience, things that fall completely outside AI's pattern-matching world.
So the AI can tell you what happens in the plot, but the human writer makes you care about the characters navigating that plot.
Exactly. The human adds the authentic internal dialogue, the messy contradictions in a character's behavior, the illogical decisions driven by fear or love, the subtle social commentary woven into the descriptions.
It's like the AI builds the house, maybe even furnishes it generically,
Yeah.
and then the human writer comes in and hangs the slightly tilted, deeply personal family portraits above the fireplace, arranges the worn-out books on the shelves, adds the specific clutter that tells a human story.
That's a great analogy. That's precisely it.
Okay, one more. Visual arts. You mentioned an integration and context model being key there for maintaining artistic integrity.
Right. So instead of a visual artist spending days, maybe weeks, painstakingly rendering hyper-realistic background details or complex textures like chainmail or flowing water,
Yeah, the time-consuming stuff.
they can use AI to generate those elements almost instantly. Need a hyper-detailed photorealistic background of a sprawling cyberpunk cityscape, or a dense, historically accurate medieval forest.
Right.
AI can provide that immediate complex generation as a base layer.
Okay, so that frees up the artist to focus their human effort where it counts most.
Precisely. The crucial human role becomes integration. Taking that AI-generated background or texture and integrating hand-painted elements or original photograph textures they capture themselves, or unique digital brushwork, non-data-derived material onto that AI scaffold.
Give me an example.
Okay, imagine you use AI to generate that sprawling cityscape background. Fine. But then you, the artist, hand paint or digitally sculpt the central figures in the foreground, especially their faces, their expressions, the subtle body language that conveys the core emotion of the piece.
So you preserve the unique fingerprint, the hand of the artist.
Exactly. You ensure originality is maintained because the meaning and the focus of the image are determined by the human-directed elements, not just the technically perfect machine-generated backdrop. The AI provides the canvas, maybe even some base colors, but the human paints the soul onto it.
This really does fundamentally change the creative workflow, doesn't it? You're essentially outsourcing the repetitive, labor-intensive tasks and concentrating your limited, valuable human time and energy on the areas that absolutely require your unique vision, your emotion, your subjective judgment. It really is a massive potential multiplier effect.
It absolutely is. If you embrace it, #tag4, developing the new creative skill set.
So embracing it, this profound shift, it fundamentally alters the identity of the artist, doesn't it?
I think it has to. The core synthesis we're seeing is that creativity isn't dying. Not at all. It's just rapidly evolving. We probably need to accept that the successful future artist isn't the one fighting the algorithm tooth and nail. No, they're the one operating as a kind of symbiotic hybrid. Part human, part algorithm whisperer.
Okay, part human, part algorithm whisperer. I like that. So if the machine is taking on more of the bulk production work, what skills do we need to actively cultivate right now over the next 5 years to stay essential, to be the human part of that hybrid? It can't just be about using the tools randomly. We need to direct this power.
Absolutely. Skill number 1, arguably the most important, is guidance. Essentially becoming a really effective director or maybe a high-level prompt engineer, but it's more than just typing words.
Okay, guidance. What does that really mean in practice?
It means learning how to effectively translate your internal, subjective, often quite fuzzy vision into precise, iterative instructions that an AI can understand and act upon.
So it's way beyond just basic prompts like cat wearing a hat.
Oh, miles beyond. Yes, it requires understanding the syntax of prompting, the technical side. But more importantly, it requires understanding how to iterate effectively, how to look at the AI's output, diagnose why it's not quite right, and then provide complex, layered feedback that steers the algorithm away from generic, average results and towards your highly specific, unique human vision.
So it's less like ordering fast food, give me X, and more like...
More like giving detailed direction to a team of incredibly skilled, incredibly fast, but slightly literal-minded assistants who need very clear instructions.
Okay.
If you just prompt, give me a corporate logo, you'll get something bland, the statistical average of all corporate logos.
Right, generic.
But if you prompt, generate 3 dynamic logo concepts exploring the tension between organic growth and rigid structure, using only shades of forest green and stark white, rendered in a minimalist, slightly asymmetrical style reminiscent of Scandinavian design. Now you're exercising guidance. You're demanding precision based on subjective criteria and artistic knowledge.
Got it. Okay, that's skill 1, guidance direction. What's next?
Skill number 2, equally vital, is curation and quality control. If AI can instantly offer you, say, 50 plot variations or 100 background options, you need impeccable taste and razor-sharp critical judgment to curate those results effectively.
Because the volume is overwhelming otherwise.
Exactly. This demands, I think, a higher level of taste and critical judgment than perhaps ever before. Because production is becoming instantaneous and almost democratized, taste becomes the ultimate scarce resource. You have to know, subjectively, intuitively, how to sift through dozens of technically good options and identify the one that truly achieves a specific emotional resonance or narrative goal you're aiming for. And you need to know why it's the best one.
And be ruthless about quality control.
Absolutely ruthless.
Yeah.
Because the sheer volume of high-quality, good enough AI content is going to be staggering. Standing out will require exceptional curation. You need to understand why Option 7 hits the mark emotionally in a way that Option 42, which might look slicker, just doesn't. That requires deep understanding of audience, culture, timing, things beyond technical perfection.
Okay, makes sense. Guidance, curation. What's the third essential skill?
The third one is interdisciplinary integration. I think the modern creator needs to become fluent in combining tools across different creative disciplines to build new kinds of hybrid workflows.
Okay, interdisciplinary integration. Unpack that for us. What does that look like in practice?
It means the successful creator is likely a hybridizer, comfortable bridging different technologies and techniques. Think about a video editor, for example.
Okay.
They might use a text AI to help script their opening monologue or voiceover. Then they might use a visual AI to generate unique, abstract background animations or scene transitions. They'd integrate traditional elements like drone footage they shot themselves for establishing shots. And finally, maybe they apply bespoke human-designed sound effects and music cues to the final mix.
So it's about orchestrating different tools, AI and traditional, into one cohesive workflow.
Exactly. Mastery of that hybrid workflow. Seamlessly integrating data-driven components generated quickly by AI with experience-driven components crafted carefully by a human. That's what will define both efficiency and originality going forward.
So it's not just mastering one tool anymore, but mastering the whole ecosystem, knowing precisely when to deploy the algorithm for speed and scale, and when to deploy the human hand for soul and nuance.
You've got it. That's the strategic mastery required.
And underpinning all of this, you mentioned a mindset shift. Away from fear.
Yes, absolutely. Experimentation over fear. The sources really emphasize this. Creators have to view this whole AI revolution as basically a massive, incredibly low-cost laboratory for ideas.
The fear is understandable, though, isn't it, when we talk about disruption on this scale?
Oh, completely natural. But think of it. If you treat the AI as a collaborator, not a competitor you have to beat, the failure of an AI-generated prototype, something that doesn't quite work, it costs you literally seconds, maybe minutes of tinkering with a prompt.
Right, not days or weeks of frustrating manual labor on an idea that fizzles out.
Exactly. That freedom from the high cost of failure allows for an unprecedented amount of exploration. You can try out wild ideas, generate hundreds of variations, push boundaries in ways that were simply too time-consuming or expensive before.
So the motivational takeaway here is really about the multiplier effect.
It has to be. This AI-human combination, done right, will exponentially multiply your creative potential. It allows you to explore more artistic avenues, iterate faster, and innovate at a speed that was previously unimaginable. You're no longer primarily limited by the physical constraints of production time.
So what's the remaining limit then?
Your only remaining limit is the speed, the clarity, and the depth of your own personal vision. Hashtag outro.
Okay, let's try and synthesize everything we've dug into today. The bottom line seems to be, AI provides incredible acceleration. It handles the ideation, the speed, the production volume.
The heavy lifting.
But the human. The human is the non-negotiable element, the one that provides the crucial VM, The vision, the emotion, and the meaning. That's where you, the creator, retain essential, irreplaceable value.
Absolutely. So the call to action for everyone listening is pretty immediate, and
Okay.
it's practical. Stop worrying so much about the competition, about being replaced. Instead, fully embrace the collaboration.
Lean into it.
Lean into it hard.
Yeah.
Focus obsessively on developing those core human skills we talked about, becoming an expert guide for these tools, developing your subjective curation abilities, your taste, and embracing fearless interdisciplinary experimentation.
Oh.
That's really the only path, we think, to truly leverage AI to expand your creative horizons while fiercely maintaining the originality that only your unique human experience can provide.
And this leaves us with that provocative final thought we wanted to leave you with today, something to really chew on. If AI genuinely accelerates the production timeline by, let's say, a factor of 10, maybe even more, and if humans are still absolutely essential for injecting the unique vision, emotion, and meaning into that accelerated output,
Yeah.
then what new, previously unthinkable creative projects, the ones that were always just too massive in scope, too complex, maybe just too time-consuming to even seriously attempt before, what kinds of projects are suddenly possible now that those huge time constraints of production are potentially lifted or at least drastically reduced?
The machine is ready. It's waiting for instructions. The real question is, are you ready to direct it towards something truly meaningful, something previously out of reach?
Something to think about. We'll see you next time for the deep dive.